I see that Phantom of the Opera just shut down after I don't know how many decades. And I've seen you talk about this. Broadway, the economic model of Broadway was certainly trying to figure out if it still had a place in Manhattan, but the last 3 years seem to have been, and predictably would be devastating for that community. Is Broadway dead?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's dead. And frankly, I don't pay much attention anymore, just because, there was an actress I was speaking to named Laura Osnes who had a way bigger career than mine, and she got outed for not having taken, the vaccine, which was, like early on, but. She's suing the New York Post for defamation over this ridiculous story, which people still believe to this day, by the way. But we were both just talking about how, she's in Nashville. We're kind of moving on at this point and don't pay attention. What I will say, though, is that the times where I have peaked back in the last few months, they keep doing what's one show called? I think it was called Strange Loop or something. The big gay queer black musical. They're doing. There was some show that the Smiths, Will and Jada, had to like buy out the rest of the run because they weren't selling tickets. There was a revival of a musical called 1776, which is about, really good score actually, and a fun show about the founding fathers, and all these characters, Jefferson, Ben Franklin, et cetera, are characters in the play. If you can find the recording of it, I highly recommend your listeners, check it out. It's really a good score. But they did a gender swapped, racially blind revival of that, and even the critic. It was so woke. Even the critics slammed that one for being too woke.
By the way, I'm a huge fan. By the way, I'm a huge fan of 1776, and I was first in line when I just heard about it. It's like, I'm going to go see that, and then I discovered it was this woke thing, and it just makes me sad. It's like I don't need that in my life, because it's something that I really cherish, this musical and the music, and I grew up with that stuff and I loved it.
I do wonder if, between the one-two punch of their ridiculous pandemic response and the programming that's happening, if people are beginning to kind of wake up and sort of read the tea leaves. It costs so much money to put up a musical on Broadway and to produce a show in general, and it's such a high risk endeavor, and there's a huge chance of failure. And so, the last that I heard, the big shows like Wicked, Lion King, Hamilton, Book of Mormon, the shows that typically do a million plus in box office a week, the sort of stalwart shows, or Chicago, which is another great one, which costs nothing to produce. It's a brilliant production. It's been running for forever. Those shows are doing fine, but in terms of new plays, new shows, it might be. I mean, like the Hugh Jackman revival of Music Man, for instance, recently. I don't think that did as well as they had anticipated it would. Even though, Hugh Jackman is he's a brilliant performer, a big star of stage and screen. Musical theater, he's very gifted in musical theater as well. But even that show was marred with, he had to call out because testing positive for COVID, and like you said before, the Phantom of the Opera, the longest running musical on Broadway, closed. This is to say nothing of other shows which closed. Aladdin, I think, closed prematurely. A show called Ain't Too Proud, which is about the Temptations, which was, it garnered its stars, Tony awards, and it was a hit. That closed. So, but yet you see people like, what's his name? Harvey Fierstein, I want to say his name is, who people will know if they've seen Independence Day. He's like the guy that talks like this. He's got the really gravelly voice, but he's like, Broadway is doing it right. They're doing it right by doing all of this. And, I don't know if you're doing it right if your shows are closing and people are complaining about how woke they are. So